And now we will continue with the online sessions, and apologies for a bit of a delay, considering we have had these discussions right after the speaking of previous speakers. So, apartheid as a denial of self-determination. Rania Muhareb will be speaking about this. Rania, do you hear us?
Members of the Jury of Conscience, my name is Rania Muhareb. I'm a human rights scholar, and I'm here in my capacity as an expert on apartheid in Palestine. I will address Israel's crime of apartheid as a denial of the Palestinian people's right to self-determination. Distinguished members of the jury, apartheid is a colonial system of domination. It is fundamentally a denial of the right to self-determination. In South Africa, apartheid involved not only institutionalized racial discrimination and segregation, but also the grand apartheid project of territorial fragmentation and political repression. It was understood as a denial of self-determination against which the General Assembly affirmed the legitimacy of people's struggles for independence, territorial integrity, national unity, and liberation. Through efforts of the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa, apartheid was enshrined as a crime against humanity in the 1973 Apartheid Convention and the 1998 Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court. It is an institutionalized regime of systematic racial oppression and domination, prohibited as a peremptory norm of international law, and constitutes a threat to international peace and security. Members of the jury, Israel's apartheid regime has been widely recognized. In July 2024, the International Court of Justice determined that Israel is in breach of the prohibition of racial segregation and apartheid. For decades prior to that, grassroots movements, civil society, scholars, practitioners, UN experts, and increasingly states have recognized Israel's illegal apartheid regime. This has now become a consensus position within the human rights movement. Israel's apartheid has oppressed and dominated the Palestinian people since the start of the Nakba, the catastrophe in 1948. Palestinians have endured mass displacement and dispossession from their lands across historic Palestine and have been subjected to widespread and systematic human rights violations constituting inhuman acts of apartheid. These have included population transfer, persecution, extrajudicial executions, mass arbitrary detention, torture, rape and other sexual violence, enforced disappearance, and other inhuman acts intentionally causing great suffering and serious injury to body and physical and mental health. These, in addition to fragmentation, illegal occupation, annexation, aggression, and the ongoing genocide, are embedded in the ideology of Zionism as a racially exclusive settler colonial project in Palestine. Israel's ongoing violations and international crimes have been well documented for decades, including by numerous UN commissions of inquiry, fact-finding missions, and investigatory bodies, none of whose recommendations have to date been implemented. The jury will want to consider that to recognize Israeli apartheid is to root it within Zionist settler colonialism's eliminatory project to erase and replace the indigenous Palestinian people. Zionism constitutes Israel's official policy and its raison d'etat. Racial supremacy is embedded in Israeli laws, policies, practices, and the institutions of the Zionist movement. The latter, including the Jewish National Fund, the World Zionist Organization, and the Jewish Agency, have operated for the past century to privilege Jewish nationals while depriving the indigenous Palestinian people of their inalienable right to self-determination, including permanent sovereignty over natural resources across historic Palestine. The jury should be aware that Zionist parastatal institutions enjoy quasi-governmental status under the 1952 World Zionist Organization Jewish Agency Status Law, and they have played a central role in the colonization of Palestine and the displacement and dispossession of Palestinians on both sides of the Green Line. Already in 1998, the UN Committee on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights recognized that these policies amount to an institutionalized form of discrimination, whereby Zionist institutions, by definition, would deny the use of properties such as land, water, and other natural resources to non-Jews, in particular the indigenous Palestinian people and also Syrians in the occupied Syrian Jowlan. 2 decades later, the Israeli parliament adopted the 2018 Jewish nation-state basic law, enshrining Jewish settlement as a national value. Palestinian human rights group Adala called the nation-state basic law a colonial law with distinct apartheid characteristics, and has highlighted Israel's ban on Palestinian family unification as worse than the laws adopted under apartheid in South Africa. Similarly, South African jurists and former UN Special Rapporteur on Palestine, John Dugard, considered already a decade ago that Israel's crimes are, quote, infinitely worse than those of apartheid South Africa. Members of the jury of conscience, the Palestinian movement for freedom, justice, and equality has for over 2 decades advocated for a comprehensive understanding of the root causes in Palestine. These are over a century of racist Zionist settler colonialism that has sought the elimination of the Palestinian people from the land, 77 years of ongoing Nakba and apartheid, and 58 years of illegal Israeli occupation, all of which must be radically dismantled through a process of decolonization. I wish to draw the jury's attention here to 3 critical points. First, the Gaza genocide is taking place in a broader context. It is a culmination of Israel's settler colonial apartheid regime, as recognized by South Africa in its application against Israel before the ICJ under the 1948 Genocide Convention. In 2021, the Gaza-based Al Mizan Center for Human Rights found that the Israeli regime deliberately imposes on Palestinians in the Gaza Strip living conditions calculated to cause their physical destruction in whole or in part, constituting an inhuman act of both the Apartheid Convention and the Genocide Convention. Second, a comprehensive articulation of the root causes in Palestine is essential to ending impunity, dismantling the system of oppression and domination, and realizing the Palestinian people's inalienable rights to self-determination and return. In this regard, it is worth recalling that Israel's apartheid regime targets the Palestinian people as a whole. It operates through perpetuating the ongoing Nakba of displacement, dispossession, and denial of the right of return, and through the fragmentation of the Palestinian people. In the Gaza Strip, under illegal siege, blockade, and enduring the ongoing genocide, in the occupied West Bank, including Jerusalem, in 1948 Palestine, and in forced exile. The jury may recall that in 2011, the Russell Tribunal on Palestine concluded that, and I quote, Israel's rule over the Palestinian people, wherever they reside, collectively amounts to a single integrated regime of apartheid, end of quote. Despite this, Israel's apartheid has often been addressed in a piecemeal manner, focusing only on some areas of Israeli control rather than the nature of the Israeli regime as it targets the Palestinian people as a people. Even the International Court of Justice in July 2024 considered Israel's breach of the prohibition of racial segregation and apartheid only with reference to its illegal practices in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, without addressing the totality of the Palestinian experience as part of the ongoing Nakba. Third, and finally, recognition of Israel's illegal apartheid regime necessitates the activation of international justice and accountability mechanisms. Indeed, Palestinian human rights organizations first advanced the apartheid framework in order to trigger international responsibility and to end the ongoing Nakba. Third states have a legal duty not to aid or assist in the maintenance of this illegal situation and to cooperate to end it through lawful means, including through sanctions, arms embargoes, and other effective measures. Perpetrators must be held accountable, while institutions, including companies, universities, sporting and cultural associations, must fully and immediately divest from and cut ties with Israeli apartheid and genocide. These measures are long overdue and have been advanced by the Palestinian movement for freedom, justice, and equality as the most meaningful forms of solidarity with the Palestinian people. Global civil society has also demanded for over 2 decades the reactivation of the General Assembly's anti-apartheid mechanisms, comprising the UN Special Committee Against Apartheid and the UN Center Against Apartheid, to direct global efforts toward the dismantlement of Israel's illegal apartheid regime. To conclude, Israeli apartheid operates as a tool of Zionist settler colonialism, both of which must be radically dismantled if the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people are to be realized. At the forefront of these are the right to self-determination and the right of return of Palestinian refugees and displaced persons to their homes, their lands, and properties, of which they have been illegally and violently displaced and dispossessed ever since the start of the Nakba. I thank you.